All right, I'm joined today by my friend and co-host Kenny Poon. Kenny, we've seen a lot of each other lately, so I know how you're doing, but tell the people, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good, Tom. I'm good. As you alluded to, we just spent a good 5 days together, including a solid I don't know, 13 hours of travel time on our trip back from Jake's wedding. Jake Storyelli, good guy, John Boy Media guy.
Some would
You
say a
might know him.
co-host of Talkin Knicks.
Some would say. Some would
They'd be
say.
wrong, but no, yes, Jake's wedding was quite a time. A lot of fun. I'm sure. I mean, if you're listening to this, you likely follow Jake, aka Talkin Jake, and his wedding was in St. Lucia, and what a celebration of love.
Yeah, it was a great time. There was a lot of good people there. A lot of love, as you said. Just good times. It was. I've said it to other people, but it was getting a bunch of people from high school to go on a trip to St. Lucia together was just something that I never would have dreamed would happen. But we got a lot of good people there, and I had a lot of fun. I don't know about you, Tom. I had a lot. I enjoyed it greatly.
I did as well. A lot of pitons were drank.
A lot of
The local
pitons.
the local beer there. But no, it was a blast. So congratulations to Jake and his sweet Jessica on a lovely nuptials. Glad we got to celebrate with them. And speaking of love, I don't know, Kenny, the Knicks. There's a lot of good spirit, a lot of camaraderie going on in that Knicks locker room right now.
Yeah,
Did you
my
get a chance
heart
to
is
watch?
full.
What's that?
My heart is full.
You and I share that sentiment. I mean,
Yeah, you
especially
guys get
after
it.
oh yeah, Hart. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about both of them. One more than the other, I'm sure. But um, yeah, just real quick to recap the weekend. The Knicks beat the Wizards on the road. They won that game 115-109. They came out pretty sluggish in that one, like kind of some of the post All-Star break. Just I don't know, they were playing like they were still on vacation a little bit. They were down 11 by the end of the first quarter. Midway through the second quarter, Knicks were down 19, and it looked pretty ugly. Frankly, the energy level wasn't there. The execution wasn't there. But Kenny, then you noticed this, and I think you might have been the first one to notice this on the internet. Kyle Kuzma hit a shot towards the end of the second quarter. He kind of shoved off a little bit on Julius Randle. Randle really went flying. Like it was, Randle wasn't playing with the requisite intensity that he needed to at that time, even though he was making his shots. But Kuzma hit him with a too small gesture, that celebration.
Hate
Um,
it.
and from then on, Randle just like played a different level of basketball, a different level of assertiveness. He dominated from then on. And I feel like you were the first one to see that.
Yeah, I mentioned as you were talking that I hate that gesture. It's just so dumb. And I saw Kyle Kuzma do that to Randall, and I was like, that's just doesn't make any sense because Randall's one of the biggest, strongest guys in the NBA. And I was like, that's weird. And then I continue to watch, and Randall just went off. Like the next two plays were just Randall dunking, and I think Kuzma on both plays just got out of the way. I was like,
Yeah.
that was weird. And I wasn't going to say anything. And then it just kept going. So yeah, I
Right.
think he ended up scoring 11 of the last like 13 points for either team in the half. So the Knicks went on an 11-2 run or a 12-2 run. I think RJ Barrett also hit a free throw in there.
Yep.
And then like I tweeted it at that point, but it didn't stop there. Like Randall just kept going off in the second half. I think he probably scored 46 in the game. I'm going to say a solid 35 of them were after that happened. So like I don't know, man. Don't poke the bear. And I saw on people talking about on Twitter that Julius Randle. I don't know if it's true. They were just saying that Julius Randle is not a fan of Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma came into the Lakers shortly after Julius Randle and replaced him in the lineup. There was some talk about that. People also said that Julius Randle. I didn't see the post game, but they said in the post game that Julius Randle said he didn't see that. But I found that hard to believe. If you go to our Twitter, you can see the video, and because like Kuzma's looking straight at Randall, and Randall's looking straight at Kuzma as this is happening. So I find it hard to believe that didn't happen. And Randle is a guy who you don't want to be playing against him when he's playing angry because, like I said, he's just a beast. Like
I
he's
mean,
just a
especially
huge.
when he channels that anger appropriately. Sometimes when he's mad at the refs, like it'll manifest in different ways. But man, it came out in all the right ways in this one. His entire approach changed. Like I said, I think the most obvious one was I think Kuzma threw just kind of a lazy pass to Porzingis at the top of the key. And Randall just, I mean, he did something you just really don't see him do much, and he just went and got it. Like he looked like a free safety going after that. He got the ball and just went down and dunked it pretty much on Kuzma, though Kuzma didn't really contest it. Or I mean, that one might have been like an up and under sort of
Yeah,
situation.
that
Yeah,
was the up and under.
that was a different finish. But either way, like that steal and drive and take was like just so aggressive and not something you see him do too much on the defensive end. And that just epitomized to me like, oh, his mindset has changed. And the Knicks are not great typically at closing quarters, at closing halves, and they had all the momentum going into halftime. And like you said, it carried through. So I mean, the game was certainly not over by any stretch, even after the Knicks had that comeback. Like this game came down to crunch time. The Knicks were down with 5 minutes left. And again, Randall carried us in many ways to victory. He hit back-to-back threes. He hit some clutch free throws with like a minute something left. He hit both of them, which for Randall is really notable. And I mean, it was just it was overcoming this slow start. There were also some other other guys made plays quickly. He hit a really tough floater over Porzingis. Brunson made an impossible looking shot, which the NBA later said he traveled on, which
He
granted,
did.
he did drag his pivot foot. But the other thing I want to talk to you about, Kenny, was like Josh Hart kept making all these winning plays, going after loose balls, and just doing all the things that Josh Hart does to win games. What did you see from him?
Yeah, and I could talk forever about Josh Hart, and I don't think we've potted since Josh Hart got traded. So, as background to everyone who, and you might already know, I went to Villanova. I'm a big Villanova fan, and Josh Hart was my all-time favorite Villanova player. And he's just a guy who, and I think Jalen Brunson said it when he came over. He's a guy that does everything. He does what the team needs him to do. I don't know that he has any elite skills. Like Brunson is just so tremendously gifted at getting around people and keeping people off balance. I don't know that Hart has any of that, except he has the hustle, he has the heart, as it were. And he, like, I've seen it in pretty much every game. Like he goes out there and creates possessions in a way that you don't see that much in the NBA. Like there have been plenty of plays where it's like it could have easily just gone the other way and no one would have thought anything of it. Like the Wizards, whoever, could have just gotten the ball and like gone the other way. But he tracks down rebounds. He gets steals. He's just constantly creating possessions for his team. And like that's something that Knicks fans have already embraced tremendously. Like people already love him, and that's something that like he's just going to continue to do. I think his first two games were impossibly good. Like I don't think he could keep that up, but he continues to do those small things to win possessions and to just play winning basketball. And that's what I love about him.
Yeah, and you're seeing him. He's already earned Tibbs's trust to close games down the stretch and close ones. I mean, in this Wizards game, I believe he was finishing. He was in crunch time and in lieu of RJ Barrett, who we'll talk about because I think he had sort of an up and down, uneven game to start the post All-Star break, but his game against New Orleans I thought was extraordinary. But either way, Hart has inserted himself into these crunch time lineups, and I mean, yeah, he does all the little things. He plays great defense. He does make shots too. He is a shot maker, and man, it's just the Knicks are 4-0 since he's joined the team, and it's been really fun. He's added a whole new dimension and element of hustle, and just playing with force and aggressiveness. Like he's gonna make opponents feel him and be the assertive one, and this team needed that.
Yeah, and he's just like I said, he does a little bit of everything. He's also a one-man fast break. We've seen it several times already in the 4 games that he's played, where he'll grab a rebound. He's a great rebounder for his position, and he'll just take it all the way the other way and catch the defense kind of sleeping. And just like, I have no idea how it happens, but he just seems to get rebounds, take it to the other end, and like no one is guarding him. He just gets an easy layup. So there's been a lot of that, and he's been a tremendous, finisher at the rim. I think one of the concerns coming in is that he hasn't been that aggressive with his shot, but like in the last 4 games, he shot the three pretty well overall, and I think I'd say extremely well overall. And he's just adding so many dimensions, as you said, that just like we haven't seen before.
Yeah, man. Even if the shot's not sustainable, like he's still finding ways to contribute and impact winning, and that's all we care about. Like there are other guys who can hit threes. I mean, Brunson's been unconscious from three for a while now. Randle, likewise. These are guys who, going into the season, we didn't consider necessarily shooters, right? So when we talked about the Knicks needing shooting from their complementary players, it was with the understanding that Brunson and Randle weren't great shooters. Now they pretty much are. For their positions, they are both shooting lights out, and that kind of changes the dynamic of what the team needs from their role players. And Josh Hart brings all of that. So
yeah, and what one more fun dimension that has been added is I think I mentioned this to you separately, but just the dynamic between Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart is just fun. I think it's something that you saw that you haven't really seen since Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. When they were in Toronto, they were just constantly goofing on each other, and it was just like a fun thing to watch. And I don't know if it's you or Greg, our other co-host, who sent it around, but I think Josh Hart, after his very hot start with the Knicks, he didn't score particularly well in this game, and he tweeted something about some video about doing the little things, and I think Jalen Brunson made fun of him for that, and he just said something like "you're so inspirational" or something like that. And I was like, that's fun. That's a fun thing to do. And that's, something that I'm gonna enjoy, continuing on as it goes on, because it's fun to see how these guys interact. And it's great for, the locker room to have, that kind of dynamic and, bring guys together.
Look, man, the locker room looks like it's a fun place to be right now. That kind of transitions us to the Pelicans game.
I want to one more thing on this
Sure.
game that I actually have wanted to talk to you guys for a while about, but I haven't brought it up. So we mentioned Julius Randle, one of his best games ever, possibly his best scoring game ever, scored 46 points, close down the stretch. And Jalen Brunson, who was not having a good game shooting wise, ends up taking that go-ahead shot. What are your thoughts there? Because I know it's something that we've talked about before, where I think we all feel more comfortable having Jalen Brunson take that last shot. But this was a game where Julius Randle was just going off, and Jalen Brunson's shot didn't look like it was really there.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Brunson finished the game 6 of 20. So going into that shot, he was 5 of 19. That's not ideal. And I think that the bigger thing for me is, when the shot goes in, it's hard to question it. But, Brunson, I just trust him to have the ball in his hands to make the right decision down the stretch. Like, even if he's not the one taking the shot, this was a game where he finished with 9 assists to 1 turnover. So even though he wasn't, he didn't find his shot until very late, like he was still making the right decisions with the ball and setting up teammates. So I would still trust him to do that in crunch time. The fact that he decided to take it for himself and shoot, that takes a great deal of confidence on his part. But, if that shot had missed or maybe if KP had blocked it or something, maybe Randle would have felt a little miffed by it. Because, I mean, to your point, Randle finished this game 16 of 29. He had 46 points and was really cooking. He was 7 of 14 from behind the arc, had made all his free throws. So, that it shows you how confident Jalen Brunson is in his ability to score. But I don't think that necessarily would have caused any kind of rift, just because, Brunson had proven that he was going to set up his teammates. He was going to find Randle, and that carried over to the next game as well. But it's a fair question and something to look for, because, Randle's a very proud guy. And when he has it going like that, he expects the ball. But, thankfully we don't have to do any what ifs, because Brunson did end up making that. No travel was called, so no travel therefore happened. But and then one other thing we should say is that this was Mitchell Robinson's first game back since he got injured against the last time the Knicks played Washington, when you and I and Greg went to that game. So Mitch Rob came back and looked very good, actually. He finished this game with a double-double. He wasn't moving great on defense. He finished with 4 fouls and had some silly ones in there, but I thought he looked pretty good conditioning wise, and that again carried over to this Pelicans game. You want to talk about New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's much to talk about in this game, that there's much to glean from it, just because the Knicks absolutely blew the Pelicans out
Wire to
in a
wire,
big
man. Like,
way.
just
Yeah,
dominated them the whole way through. It was like, yeah, it was one of the most dominant performances the Knicks have had in a while.
which I think maybe that's the takeaway from it, because that's something that we have talked about a lot. Where the Knicks haven't gotten a lot of those games. Where they'll have games where they go up by 20, and then the other team will cut it to 10, and then it's kind of a little uneasy the rest of the game. It stays to around 10 and they win by around 10. They haven't had a game like this in a while where they just, I think they were up by 30 in the closing minutes, and then, it got cut down to maybe 20, or looks like they won by 22. But it was nice to be able to kind of relax a little bit, because the Knicks have had a lot of close games this season, and it's been stressful.
Yeah, I mean, they started strong. Julius Randle again came out firing. He finished this game 5 of 10 from 3. That's back-to-back games where he hit 50% from behind the arc on double-digit attempts. Like, that's just not something you expect from Julius Randle necessarily. But this guy was in the 3-point competition, though. I don't know how well that went. You and I didn't watch it. We were busy on the beach in St. Lucia. But no, I mean, Randle's been a stud lately. And really everyone played well in this one. Like, Jalen Brunson finished with 20 points, 5 assists. RJ Barrett, I think, had his best game in quite some time. Like, in that game against Washington, RJ actually played some decent defense, I thought. But offensively, he struggled to start. And then in this one, he was just, the most impressive thing was just his decision making. I thought he was doing a great job of balancing, and I tweeted about this, just like finding that balance between looking for his own shot and finding his teammates. And he had a season high 7 assists in this one. I believe 5 of them were in the first half. And he was really getting guys going, particularly Mitchell Robinson. He was finding on lobs and pick and rolls. So Mitch being back is huge for him. And Mitch looked really strong in this one too. He finished with 11 points, 13 boards, and was overall pretty dominant. Even though Valanciunas on the other end, like, that's a big, strong guy, and Mitch Rob for the most part held his own. So I don't know, like, is there anyone in particular you want to single out? I feel like it was a nice team win.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've talked a lot about Josh Hart already, but this was another kind of great showing for Josh Hart, where he had a couple of plays in this game that I highlighted, that are just like small things that led to winning basketball plays. I think there was one play where I think Julius Randle came down with a rebound. Josh Hart was, running up the side. He realized that his guy wasn't recovering to him, and you can hear him in the audio just yelling for the ball. He gets the ball, goes in for a layup, and he draws the foul. I think he ended up making 1 of 2, but still, it's a winning basketball play. And it's just, stuff like that I love. And I don't. You mentioned all 3 of the mid 3, as they called it, scored over 20, and so Josh Hart's stat line doesn't look as impressive by comparison, but he was still 5 of 6 with 15 points, and a lot of those small winning plays where he wins possessions, he forces things to happen, and I can't speak enough about how much I love that kind of basketball.
Yeah, it was a great win, especially on the second night of a back-to-back. And it's not like, they had to travel a little bit too. It's not, Washington's not far, but it wasn't 2 home games. You know what I mean? Like, that's a tough ask coming out of the All-Star break, and they were up for it. Everyone played well. Hartenstein has looked like a very good backup center again. He's just been really physical, playing good defense, had 10 boards in just 19 minutes in this one. Just everybody. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out, but like, I mean, Quickly's making a strong case for 6th man of the year votes. Like, I've seen some buzz around that from national media lately, because he's been that important for this team. Everyone's doing their part. Quickly had that play towards the end of the game where he threw the ball off the backboard to Randle for the dunk. I saw the interview from Rebecca Harlow after the game. She asked him about it. She said, like, noting that doesn't count as an assist, and it might even count as a missed field goal attempt. I'm not sure. I didn't check, but Quickly was like, I did not know that. He thought that he got an assist for that, but either way, he was just joking about it, and it all just looks like so much fun. Like, everyone just seems like they're having a good time. These guys look like they're fun to play with, and it's just funny with Quickly, especially. This is someone who some people considered a gunner, like shoot first, or someone who's going to look to get his. He's been very unselfish. He's been doing a great job running second units. And so it's all things are looking pretty good in New York. So Kenny, we can take a quick, just like zoom out a little bit and see that the Knicks right now on the season, they're currently 35-27. That's good for, are they the sixth seed right now? I'm gonna pull that up.
They were the sixth seed by a half a game the last I checked, which was last night. But
That's right. Yep. Sixth seed by half a game behind Brooklyn and up 2.5 games on seventh seed Miami. So they're like comfortably in that sixth seed, currently out of the play-in tournament, which is nice. And you could certainly see them making that push because Brooklyn is a new team post All-Star break, post trade deadline. The 5 seed is certainly in play for the Knicks, and that's just, I don't think that's something that we really thought about much coming into the year. So it's just a very positive, exciting time. I almost don't even know what to say about it. Like overall, the team has just been so good offensively. I'm looking at cleaning the glass right now, which factors out garbage time. On the season, the Knicks have the 6th ranked offense, and this just the 17th ranked defense. But in recent games, I'm looking in the month of February, in the last 10 games, New York has the 2nd ranked offense and 10th ranked defense. Like top 10 in both, 2nd ranked offense. That's crazy stuff that we're talking about, especially considering this is a team that plays a fair amount of ISO ball. They've been moving the ball better lately. They're still dead last in assists per game and assist percentage and all that stuff. But these guys are just they're playing in a way that doesn't seem selfish. The ball is moving. And it's the best they've played all year, no question.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to keep harping on it, but I think since the Josh Hart trade in particular, I think they've won, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 games. They've won all the games that they've played. But they just look like so cohesive as a team. And, those things that were happening earlier in the season where, you were concerned about them going down the stretch about whether they blow the lead. Like I haven't been as concerned about that the last few games as I was, maybe prior to that. Cause I think, they have a lot, like not even just Josh Hart, like having Jalen Brunson as compared to prior seasons, like that makes me so much more comfortable than going down the stretch with, Alec Burke at the point guard or Elfrid Payton at the point guard. And just like knowing that we have multiple guys who can score, that's great to see. And I think we touched on it a little bit, but like the locker room vibes seem good. And you mentioned the quickly to Julius Randle off the backboard thing. And like after that, you see the team celebrating together. You see Randle like dancing with Emmanuel quickly, and it's like that's fun. And like that's what I want to see from this locker room, because I know last year with the Julius Randle like thumbs down thing, I don't know that was a locker room thing, but just like he wasn't pumped to be playing basketball. And it looks like right now everyone on this team is excited to be doing what they're doing. And like I don't know that I think there was concerns about Cam Reddish wasn't happy with his situation, and like that led to some strife. And I think right now Josh Hart coming in and just thriving in the role that he is playing is just it's phenomenal. And it's something that it has been very enjoyable basketball to watch the last several games.
Yeah, with Josh Hart in the lineup, like you don't expect a letdown in intensity that could lead to some of those comebacks that we see so much when the Knicks do manage to build a lead. But I think the one area where there might be maybe just a little bit of hand wringing, a little bit of concern would just be on the RJ Barrett front. Only because he did not play in crunch time against the Wizards. And, there are just a lot of good wings between Grimes, who's very good, might be the best on-ball defender on the team, and Josh Hart now. Emmanuel quickly has proven he can play alongside Jalen Brunson, and those lineups have been incredible with those two out there together. So it's like it can be tricky finding minutes for RJ Barrett down the stretch. When he's playing as well as he did against New Orleans, that's one thing. When he's making all the right decisions, when he's getting after it on defense, like, RJ Barrett's ceiling is still very high. When he's playing well, he can play as well as anybody. But the problem is that his floor can be so low. And there's been a bit of a track record this season of struggles for him. I don't know. I've said before with Mitch back, like that makes a huge difference in RJ Barrett's approach when he's driving. He's just so much more comfortable finding Mitch on lobs. He wasn't even looking really for Sims or Hartenstein on lobs with Mitch out. And that's a huge outlet for him. Like we both know, RJ Barrett drives a lot. And if he doesn't have that option, one fewer option for him in the lob makes it much less of a weapon. So,
and I'll say that I like the way that Tibbs has handled it, and I don't actually think it's that different than he's handled it in the past. And like he's going with the hot hand down the stretch, and I think he's done that in the past. There before Josh Hart came online, he was there was still games that RJ Barrett didn't play down the stretch, and I think had it been a close game down the stretch yesterday, RJ would have played just because that's how well he was playing. But I am perfectly comfortable with Tibbs if they need what Josh Hart is giving them. Put Josh Hart out there and let RJ sit on the bench. If RJ is playing well and they need what he has, then RJ will play. I think that's the best way to handle it because I think that we saw yesterday that RJ responded well by playing one of his better games of the season and doing a little bit of everything and kind of I think he's rising to the occasion of seeing, okay, this is what Josh Hart's bringing to the table. What can I add? And you mentioned he had a season high of 7 assists yesterday. So I like it. And I think that, it's going to challenge Josh Hart. And I know there's been a lot of people on Twitter who are like, I'm the biggest Josh Hart fan out there, but I don't think they're going to bench RJ Barrett like as a starter in favor of Josh Hart. And I don't think that would make sense to do either. So for all you on Twitter who are hoping for that, I just don't think it makes sense. I think right now they are both very good in their roles. And so I wouldn't want to mess with that.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Tibbs has gone with the hot hand route in the past. It's just now he does have one more very good option, and it could just lead to just more benchings for RJ potentially. And I'm with you that like whoever's playing better deserves to be on the court. Then it's just you get factoring the human element. Like how's RJ feel about that? As someone who signed this big contract, who was drafted there to be a franchise cornerstone. I think, yeah, you're right that he did handle it very well last night against New Orleans. And hopefully that continues to be the case. Just something to watch out for. You see the articles written. I think it was Bondi who wrote something about RJ being benched. And RJ's a high character guy, but he is also just human. So it's something to watch out for. But yeah, and against Washington, even when RJ was struggling on the offensive end, he still had multiple deflections in that game, which he averages like half a deflection a game. He had a couple, and he also had 1 steal and 1 block. So he was just, his level of activity on the defensive end against Washington was very much there, even though his shot wasn't falling to begin with. And that's what I love to see. It's all about the process with RJ. It's all about, is he playing hard on defense, even when things aren't going his way? Is he making the right decisions on offense? Even if the shot's falling, is he still making the right passes? And so far out of the All-Star break, he's been doing that, and it's been really encouraging. So no complaints on the RJ Barrett front, and that's great because RJ is the X factor, man. Like if RJ is playing well, like this team can really go places.
Yeah, and I think people forget how young RJ Barrett still is, and like he's got some growth to do for sure. And like I think a little bit of that is that's why you see some of this inconsistency. And if he can consistently shoot the ball and can consistently play defense, he is going to be such a valuable player for more years than just this year. So I'm not, I know people get fixated on him now, and when he gets benched, people have their opinions, but like Tibbs is trying to win basketball games, and like in the now, that's the best way to do it. But long term, I think that RJ Barrett is still a very valuable piece of this franchise.
Yeah, completely agree. So we've got, I think we kind of covered a lot of it. I think we can go ahead and move to looking forward here. People are probably listening to this on Monday, meaning that tonight the Knicks are at home against the Boston Celtics. And then Wednesday at home against the Brooklyn Nets, which is a huge one because, as we mentioned, Brooklyn is just a half a game ahead of New York for that 5 seed. So, a big week coming up. And then the Knicks have Miami at Miami on Friday, and then Sunday evening again at Boston. So this week features 2 games against the Celtics, who are playing some good ball right now. They just won a nail biter against the 76ers last night. So this will be a tough week coming up. There's no easy wins here. There's no guarantees. What are you thinking for these next 4 games?
So not only is this a tough week, but this is a big week in that, like you mentioned, Brooklyn is right ahead of us, and I think Miami is right behind us. So those 2 teams sandwich us. And then, Boston is, I know people try to make the Brooklyn rivalry happen. I hate the Celtics more than I've ever hated Brooklyn. So I would like to win at least one of those 2 games, and I'd like to win the Brooklyn and Miami game. So I'm going to go 3-1. 3-1 is my prediction. I want to stay optimistic. I mean, Brooklyn and Miami are very winnable games, and I'm not going to take one of those teams in a game I think we can win. And Boston's just a very good team, so I'll take the split in those 2.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's 8-2 in their last 10. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They're the number 1 seed in the East, right? Like that's a very good team. They're actually the best record in the entire league. So that's a tough matchup. But to your point, the Nets are just 4-6 in their last 10. They're a completely different team than they were when the Knicks played them earlier. And the Heat are also 4-6 in their last 10, not exactly lighting the world on fire. So, I think, if the Knicks go 2-2 this week, I still see that as a win. 3-1 would just be like, what are we talking about here? Like we'd be talking a little crazy on next week's episode. But yeah, man. I mean, anything else? I'm so pumped that Mitchell Robinson is back. It kind of just realigns the big man rotation in a way that makes sense. Gets Hartenstein back into a role that is perfect for him, and everything kind of falls into place with a rim protector like that, with a rim running presence like that. So with Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson, like 2 great defensive players, this team is going to be really interesting down the stretch of the season, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, and I think something else worth mentioning is maybe a couple weeks ago, the Knicks were number 2 in strength of schedule. They've dropped down to number 11 because of their tough stretch the last few weeks. They played the Sixers 2 or 3 times already. So they are like not solidly, but they're in that middle third of, they're going to play an average schedule. And that's going to go down even further after this week because this is based off of, current win percentage. So both the Nets and the Celtics are on that list. So, I had a little bit of trepidation in how they would fare coming out of, I think it was December into January. They had a real soft schedule, and then they had a very tough schedule, but they handled it very well. And that has me optimistic for, the rest of the season. There's not a ton of games left, but I feel good. I think I placed a bet at, I don't know, it was 38.5 wins, 39.5 wins. I'm feeling good about that. So I think the Knicks have a solid shot here to avoid that play-in game and, make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, as the playoffs get closer, we're going to have to start talking about expectations and what constitutes success. Cause I think that the goalposts have moved a little bit, like what we considered at the beginning of the season. I feel like we probably have to change our expectations a little bit. Based on how well they've played and some acquisitions made and things like that. So, we'll be talking all about that in the coming weeks. But Kenney, this is it's the most fun Knicks basketball we've had to watch in a long time. I'm glad I'm glad we're talking about it. So, for everyone out there listening, watching, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to us on various podcast platforms, follow us on Twitter at Talkin Knicks, on Instagram at Talkin Knicks. We're putting out a lot of videos, a lot of content. So, some good stuff there. We appreciate you all. Leave your reviews, all that stuff. And until next time, hey, let's go Knicks.
Stay.